Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. I know it's a bit late in the month, but we got Zenkai at like a weird time. So today we're going over the top 5 rogue decks for September 2022. This video is going to be a mixture of my recommendations for you guys to try out, just some decks I think are interesting in Zenkai format, as well as some decks that are backed up by some of the data from the first couple events of the new format and new series. The data for the San Diego Regional is probably coming out this morning, so obviously I'm not covering that in today's video, but I'll probably be doing that in tomorrow's video, covering that tournament as well as some other tournaments that were reported to me. So this video is not going to be too swayed by data from this past weekend's events, but I still think these decks are going to be good in a rogue tier, a little bit less played than some of the other meta stuff like the Red Sins, the SS4 Gojitas, the SS3 reboots. There's going to be some more rogue and fun stuff for you guys to try out with Zenkai. Anyways, though, with that being said, if you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, there are tons of ways down in the description you can do so. But today, if you want to buy or pre-order any of the cards we talk about in today's video, or any trading cards for that matter, it really does help me out if you'd use my link in the description to TCG Player, and I really do appreciate it. Anyways, let's jump right in talking about the first deck, and that is Reboot Yellow Kid Goku. So this is the deck that I've been enjoying the most in this format. I still have it pegged as a very high competitive pick, but I do think it's going to take some more learning of, you know, kind of how the play lines go and how the deck should be built, because I do think there are many ways to build the deck. I currently have a mono yellow build on the Patreon, and that's the build that I've been playing most frequently. I think it's a very strong mono yellow deck, but I've also heard some stuff about blue yellow. I've heard some stuff about including the slug engine, which I do think would take a fair reworking of the deck, and you know, definitely taking out a fair amount of the main engine stuff. But regardless of how you build it, the leader is very powerful. And I know this effect here that taps down everything was one that people were a lot more scared of, I guess you could say, upon the earlier release of Zenkai reveals. But you know, we're in kind of like a faster format right now where red is on top and blue is kind of seemingly one of the only things that's gonna counter it pretty well. But one, I think that yellow has great tools to deal with red. I mean, yellow has tons of ways to interrupt during battle, tons of floodgates that you can play, whether they're yellow or off-color floodgates, like Oceanus, for example. But I still think yellow has good tools, and I think that the yellow decks are going to take some innovation before they start to really pick up. I think I have a really good build for this deck, again, on the Patreon. I've really been enjoying it. I think it's very competitive. But yeah, this is an effect that's also going to get stronger as formats slow down, because we know that in slower formats, bigger, chunkier unisons like Boo Unison, maybe even Machikabura Unison, other pesky blocker unisons are going to be pretty prevalent in slower formats. So this effect will get better as time goes on. And yeah, I think the deck's really strong. I think the combination of Oolong, Mira, and the Gohan Piccolo SCR offers some really strong game-ending power, which is a pretty cool thing too, because last format it kind of felt like if you didn't draw Piccolo Gohan, your deck was like tier 2, but if you drew Piccolo Gohan, your deck was tier 1. Oolong adds another element to that, where maybe you don't have to draw Piccolo Gohan, but if you drop a Mira or even the free Dark Broly Overrealm, and then copy its power with Oolong for 1 energy, that gives you more of that game-ending pressure that you were missing if you didn't happen to draw your Overrealm or if you didn't happen to draw your Secret Rare. So overall, I do think yellow is very good. Again, I think it's going to take players some more time to get used to how to play it, how to build it. Yeah, I think it's really good. Definitely recommend. Another one is one that's been pointed out to me by Adrian of No Counters, No Combos. So huge shout out to you, man. The Piccolo Superhero stuff never really took off the ground. It did top, I think it was top 4 of the Spain regional from a weekend or 2 ago, and that was pretty cool. But I mean, no one really expects this deck to do much else outside of that. We always see rogue outliers do pretty well from time to time. We saw Finn win a regional last format. We saw some other outliers do some other things in previous formats. But I do want to say that this was pointed out to me, and it's really cool that Untapped Power SS2 Gohan is a leader you can play with the Piccolo Superhero stuff, because it's actually a yellow leader that interacts with the drop area. For one, you have tons of burst effects, right? So on the Unawakened side, you burst 2, you pitch 1, you draw 2. So you have good filter there, and you're actually increasing your hand size. Unfortunately, the Piccolo Superhero leader is pretty neutral on its hand advantage, meaning like you draw a card, but then you pitch a card, and then the activate battle on the Awakened side is pitch a card to combo a card. So it gets you know, kind of like it just wears and tears in your hand in a lot of ways, and it makes it kind of hard to play the game, especially against aggressive decks where you need those cards in your hand to defend with. This is a leader that will increase in hand size and do cool things with the drop area interaction stuff, much like Son Gohan Flash of Brilliance. So that's a pretty cool thing in my opinion. Again, shout out to Adrian for pointing this out to me. Maybe this is a slightly better way to play the deck until Piccolo gets a broken Z leader. Who knows? Maybe an anniversary box, maybe next set. I'm sure that leader's gonna get a Z leader sometime in the near future. If you guys saw the superhero movie, I won't spoil it, but anyways, yeah, cool stuff here. Only problem I can foresee with this leader is getting awakened, but we have the Vegeta Z battle card, we have Frieza army reinforcements, so as long as your opponent hits you theoretically 2 times, you should be able to get awakened kind of on command. So pretty cool thing to try out in my opinion. Then we have Gamma. So we're talking about Gamma in the Rogue tier because 1, I still think it's a good blue deck, but 2, it seems to be falling off in terms of, I guess, meta contention going into this new set, where last set, in Ultimate Squad, is one of the best decks you could possibly be playing. It just had great results. Now, based off of what I know from San Diego, that SS3 Reboot won again, and based on the fact that it won the Kansas City Regional, this just might be a little bit of a watered down version of SS3 Reboot, only because you're locked into those Android cards, but that's not necessarily only a downside because Gamma does have some very good Android cards at its disposal. Cell Ultimate Bio Androids are really good board wipe, punishes your opponent for negating attacks. You've got your own built-in Floodgate that costs 2, where depending on the build of SS3 that you're playing, it could be hard to fit in those cheaper Floodgates. You can test your luck playing Oceanus, but I mean, if you ramp it into your energy early on, you're not going to feel great about that. Then you have Ready to Rumble, which costs 4. Great Floodgate, don't get me wrong, but it comes in a little bit later in the game. So there's always some pros and cons to Gamma. As things are shaping up now, it seems like SS3 is the better blue deck that restands 3 energy at the end of the turn, but I still think Gamma has its pros, and I do have a build here on the channel if you guys want to see my updated Zenkai build for Gamma. And this is also another archetype that is definitely getting more support as time goes on, so I think it's a good investment for the long term. Definitely one you want to try out. Next up, we have Launch. Now, a lot of you guys are probably going to be surprised that I'm talking about Launch in a Rogue video because many players expected it to be near tier 0 going into Zenkai, and that's because you have a card like Launch the Pure Hearted that when it is comboed, even from your drop area where it would normally be sent to your warp afterward, you get to just put it in your Z energy, and you can theoretically infinitely loop that because putting in your Z energy is essentially a replacement effect. It's just a game mechanic that replaces that, and once it goes from your Z energy back into your drop, you can just combo it from your drop again. You can infinitely recycle that resource, and that is a very powerful thing, don't get me wrong, but I think what might be holding Launch back just a little bit right now, I think it might be 2 things. 1, I think the builds have to change again, and what I mean by again is when Launch was pretty good several sets ago, it was typically played blue-red, but sometimes it was played even tricolor, and that was like the first iteration of Launch being competitive, whether you're playing pure red-green, pure red-blue, or tricolor red-green-blue. Then we have Launch of last format, where it pretty much just went straight to red-blue, and it also adopted the Baby Unison, which showed to be very powerful in the deck. Now I think going into Zenkai format, I think Launch has to make a change again, and I've talked about this in a couple videos where I think it has to change to playing a much more heavy blue lineup. So honestly, altogether, you probably cut Baby Unison for 2 reasons. 1, it's just a lot more red in the deck where you need more blue, and 2, if the format is more aggressive like it looks like it is with Sin and Gogeta and all that stuff, you definitely want to avoid playing a 3-cost Unison because it's way too far in the game, and it can lead to a lot of problems, especially if you go second, because 3 energy going second, that means that your opponent's coming up on their big turn 4 play, which we know many decks in this format have a big turn 4 play. So yeah, I think Launch has to adopt more blue so it can play Dirty Burst to give it a better chance against the Sin and SS4 Gogeta decks. But I do also want to say that, man, if you go second against something like Sin or even SS4 Gogeta, Sin hitting you for a triple strike crit is not going to feel very good, and SS4 Gogeta dropping their 8-drop triumphant together, you're a small leader, man. You're not one of these 15k leaders. Even if you're on your flip side, you're still comboing more cards from hand than most other decks are. And when that 8-drop attacks you, you're not activating any of your flippers, any of your launches, any of your Bulmas, stuff like that. So again, that's not all to say Launch is a bad deck. I do think Launch does an inherently pretty busted thing with Zenkai being around, but I think the builds are going to have to change a bit more before people can really start to see success with Launch. So for now, definitely in the Rogue tier. And then finally, I gotta give a huge shout out to Stage Zero. I saw Brian post a really cool deck the other day, and ever since he posted it, I've been thinking about it nonstop because I didn't have this idea. So again, I gotta give him a huge shout out. I'm gonna post his video link down in the pinned comment once I get a chance during my workday. I'm gonna share that with you guys here, but I'll give you the concept of the deck. So it's playing the blue Dende Wish Leader from set 6, very old leader, but a very cool concept. So you guys know the strategy of a Wish Leader. On your unwished side, you're searching Dragon Balls, getting them out of your life, getting them out of your deck, drawing a bunch of cards that way, by the way, because every single turn you're adding 2 cards to your hand. So now on your backside, you have Goku Energy Restore. Now the first effect is, besides draw a card, you can activate a black or blue desire from your hand without paying its energy cost. So you can use Assemble a Squad to get Majin to fire West Supreme Kai out of your deck, and that's essentially a form of ramping. So theoretically on turn 2 or 3, whatever you awaken, you can play 2 West Supreme Kais. You can play 1 from your deck with Assemble a Squad, and you can play 1 from your hand. So you're kind of like ramping 2 energy, which is crazy. And then eventually you're going to be able to play the, I think it's the SS4 Vegeta Super Warrior, the one that looks at the top 4 cards, and if they're blue, you ramp them or add them to your hand, which admittedly in this deck is only a little bit weird because you are playing some non-blue cards, but still, I mean, it goes with the theme. So now you're ramping energy, and eventually you're going to use your Wish Leader's ultimate effect to remove 7 Dragon Balls, draw 2 cards, untap 2 energy. Now normally you would have to flip your leader back to its unwished side at the end of the turn, and that would leave you real vulnerable to your opponent's onslaught because now your leader's only 10k and it can't really do anything threatening. But if you were able to ramp up to 7 energy, you can use that leader ultimate, and then you can Z Awaken into Ultra Instinct Son Goku Limitless Awakening, which means you no longer have to flip back to your unawakened side, and you just have a really crazy strong Z leader. 20k crit double strike, has the ability to negate more attacks, and you just untap 2 and you drew 2. So it's a really cool deck that I just did not even think of. And again, I gotta shout out Brian from Stage Zero for this one. It's a really cool deck. So anyways, those are my top picks for rogue decks. Half of them I think you'll find pretty fun. The other half I think are pretty decent as far as the meta goes. But anyways, guys, let me know in the comments below what rogue decks you guys are playing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.